It is difficult to quantify these issues. It is more difficult to suggest solutions. So have some of the folks you've talked to, has some of the reporting that you focused on, turned it around to, okay, now that we have this knowledge base, what can be done or what should be done? Knowledge is number one, acceptance that there is an issue and understanding the situation, but what do we do from there to create a better situation? And I didn't say make things equal, because that's wholly dependent on a variety of other factors, including individual dynamics. But what can we do to level the playing field much more substantively?
Well, in 1960s with the Civil Rights Act, there were great strides in trying to make things more equal, and they established through that the Fair Housing Act the commissions that are in every city in Iowa with a population of over 29,000 is the threshold in Iowa. They have a commission, a civil rights commission, where people who, if they feel they've been discriminated against, housing, employment, or obtaining credit, can formally give a complaint. And these are law enforcement commissions. They have the ability to investigate and to make people pay punitive damages if they are found to have committed these discriminatory practices. So in Cedar Rapids, Stephanie Munsterman Scriven is the executive director for the Civil Rights Commission. And she said, you know, they had almost 36 cases of accusations of discrimination last year. And she thinks a solution is through education, just like you said, Jeff, helping people to understand how we got here, and on an individual level, what can I evaluate in my personal thoughts and my actions, also in my work spaces, my faith spaces, my school spaces. Am I looking at things through a historical lens and to move things forward? Now, that was her perspective, where it really comes down to education. Dr. Colin Gordon, University of Iowa, is going to take he took a more controversial page. And I say controversial because I can't advocate for anything but truth and equality. I can, as a journalist, I can come out and say, you know, racism is bad, obviously. But I can't say that the solution that Dr. Gordon wants is one that I endorse. So just to be clear here, he thinks bringing back stronger unions, that Black people were protected by the unions, labor unions, and as those labor unions lost their power, then Black people had less of a voice in the workplace, and their income came down because of it. Also, white people on the lower end of the economic and education spectrum also lost ground through the loss of unions. So Dr. Gordon would advocate for boosting up unions. And then Dr. Hayter, the only Black person I talked to, or who talked to me on camera for this story, his perspective was, he almost breathed a heavy, like, oh, how do we fix it? And you could just see the weight in him of, this is so complex. This has been going on since, you know, slavery was a thing. And he just said, it's going to take people acting personally and in the public space. And this is going to be really difficult. And he said, it's not going to change because of protesting. It's the work after protesting.
To some degree, protesting, and again, I'll separate peaceful from violent, but protesting raises awareness. And that is actually where I want to close with this. It's the sort of thing when we do reporting, when journalists do extended reporting, when there is a national discussion of an issue, we all talk about paying attention to this. We all talk about following up. We all talk about, with very good intentions, fixing a problem. So I guess the question is, what's the chance that this is going to be yet another one of these issues? And you could name a half dozen of them without thinking hard, where the national attention is focused on something. We all pledge to be better people and fix the situation. And then the next shiny object comes along, or the next crisis comes along. And with the protests, COVID-19 was off the lead story and front page for how many weeks as a result of that. So I wonder, do you have any sense that this is a story that is going to continue to be reported on and or paid attention to by the public months from now, much less years from now?
I think the only way that it's going to stay in front of us from a media perspective is if there's something new. And history is not new. So the fact that we set aside an hour to dive into, some history pieces, I've never been able to do that before in my 21 years as a journalist. And I don't know if I'll ever get that chance again. So now the question is, what is the longevity of this, as you said, and what are people's appetites for moving the needle in certain ways and not see reaching closer to equity feels like you're taking something away from me as a white person. And that is where I think people are having a little bit of a struggle because they think it's, you've seen the meme, it's pie. It's not pie. Just because somebody else has more equity doesn't mean you're losing a slice. We have already seen a lessening of Black Lives Matter conversations and stories that we are covering as COVID has peaked again in some counties. So it's going to have to take people who don't care that it's not the top of their Twitter feed, or that it's not what everybody's talking about on Facebook, or celebrities aren't doing hashtag BLM on Instagram. This has to be a movement that people care about and their lawmakers want to do something about. And that's where I am not advocating, because I cannot, as a journalist, for laws to change or think, but what I can say, if we can get closer as a nation for all people being treated equally, I think that's probably safe territory.
Well, you would like to think, but these days, sometimes I wonder. Thank you so much, Beth, for the reporting, and thank you for sharing it through our conversation today. I do appreciate it.
My pleasure, Jeff. Thank you for giving me a little bit of time. I haven't gotten to have lunch with you since the pandemic started, so this is a close second.
Maybe via Zoom, you could have your lunch, I could have my, that's how people are doing it these days. Yeah, it's not quite the same. Thanks again for the time.
You're so welcome. Thank you.